So, this was something that happened my freshman year of college. Being new to a campus that I didn't have many friends on, I began seeking out some cool people to hang out with as I had long breaks between my classes. I quickly found myself spending time with a large group of girls from my math class. We began spending time in the lounge area of my campus and made some friends through there too. To give an idea, it was a relatively smaller campus with only a few buildings, and the lounge area was quite a small room with some pool tables and seats. As the semester went on, we began making it a regular ordeal to all go to lunch or coffee at least once a week. Our lunch group quickly went from 5 people to nearly 20. Friends started bringing acquaintances and our group grew. One kid named Spencer, who was a friend's friend, joined us regularly for coffee or lunch. One day word got back to me that he was into me and wanted to get my number. I nicely told my friend that I wasn't interested and that I had a boyfriend. A lie. I thought this would deter him as he came off as a non-confrontational person. One morning, a group message was sent out by my friend Trish, who asked if we all wanted to meet up for coffee, and everyone for the most part agreed to meet. I arrive about 10 minutes early to almost everything, so I was used to being the first one there. Spencer arrived shortly after me. He sat down next to me and I exchanged a friendly good morning and a smile. Slowly the time passed and no one else showed up. We sat awkwardly for about 15 minutes and finally he spoke up and said, "This is a surprise date. I planned it. I think it's important to mention I'm pretty hot-headed and I don't like being lied to." I got up from the chair, gathered my things, and left without a word. The next couple of weeks went by without a word from Spencer. I thought that maybe he had gotten the hint that I wasn't interested. Soon, though, he started showing up at the same time that I worked out at the school gym. I didn't think much of it because our schedules were pretty similar, so like myself, I just assumed this was the only time he had to work out. Soon it went from being there at the same time to him following me around the gym. Whatever machine I was using, he was conveniently at the one right next to me, lifting lightweight and staring. I had some friends that worked the front desk of the gym, so I mentioned it to them and they said they'd take care of it if it got out of hand. One day, I was squatting at the gym and mid-rep, he walked up, pulled my headphone out and proceeded to tell me my form was off and grabbed my waist. I racked my bar and turned around angrily telling him, "Don't fucking touch me." He apologized and proceeded to ask me out once again. I told him I wasn't interested and had a boyfriend anyways. I didn't. Once again, a couple weeks went by and the only contact I had with Spencer was sitting at the opposite end of the table during our lunch gatherings. I thought he had finally gotten the hint. Then one day at the gym, I was walking down the hallway to the girls' locker room when he walked up behind me and put both hands on either side of the wall behind my head. He said, "I know you feel the connection. I do. Why don't you let me take you out?" I quickly yelled for my friend Chris, who worked the gym's front desk. Keep in mind, Chris is very large, 6'3", and extremely fit, whereas Spencer is 5'7", and well, wasn't fit. Chris quickly walked around the corner to see what was happening and came running down the hall yelling at Spencer. He was then banned from the gym and not allowed back in. One night I get a text message from a random number stating that it's Spencer and he wanted to apologize for what happened at the gym. I told him what he did wasn't okay and that I wasn't interested in him and I'd like for him to leave me alone from now on. He apologized again, and again, I didn't hear anything else. Thinking that was the last time, I blocked his number. All was well until one day when I came home from work to a bouquet of white lilies sitting on my doorstep. Thinking they were from my grandma, she does sweet stuff like this. I got excited, picked them up and took them inside. Then I read the letter. It was unsigned and just said, "I love watching you." I frantically started calling and texting friends thinking this was a sick joke as they knew about how creepy Spencer had been. I got concerned answers and honest no's from every single one. I panicked, threw the flowers out, and made sure to lock my door. Later that night, I get a text from a random number that said, "You didn't enjoy your flowers? I saw you throw them away." At this point, I had had enough. I called the number, and the familiar voice of Spencer was on the other line. I lost my shit quite literally. I didn't even let him get past his sickening hello before I started screaming at him. He then calmly stated if I wanted to talk to him to come outside. I looked out my window and there he was, standing right in front of my house, smiling. I called the cops, and when they showed up, they detained him and I got a restraining order placed on him. The cops then contacted me a couple days later to let me know he has more than one restraining order placed for the same behavior. 10, including mine to be exact. I had late classes the semester after this and called campus police to walk me to my car every night after this because I was terrified he would show up again. Shortly after that, I moved about 300 miles away and luckily have never seen him again other than his every so often random Instagram follow request. So Spencer, let's not ever meet again.
This story took place in 2012. I moved out on my own for the first time about 2 hours away from my parents in order to go to college. Within the first few weeks of being there, a random guy stopped me on campus and asked me out. I'm a very shy and very introverted person. This had never happened to me before. I said yes. We exchanged phone numbers and we went our separate ways. At the time, I didn't have a cell phone. I only had a Skype number, so I made sure to explain that to him. However, he would still call me all day long while I was at school, and it honestly kind of put me off. Several days later, I decided I needed to run some errands. I walked to Walmart, bought what I needed, and started walking back. It started to rain, and I thought, wow, it's just going to be one of those days, huh? About a mile into my walk home, a car slowed down beside me. Well, it was the dude. He asked if I wanted a ride. I was naive, sore, and tired, and I gave in. I got into the car without even thinking of the possible consequences. He made a big deal about how he wasn't from that part of town, and how lucky I was that he ran into me while he happened to be doing errands there. He drove me to my place, and he asked if I wanted to go to lunch and a movie with him after I put up my stuff. I said sure, why not? He really did seem friendly, and I didn't really think much of it at the time. Once I got back in the car, however, things started to get weird. He asked me if I like seafood, and I said no. I really dislike seafood. He then said,
"Well, that doesn't matter. I'm taking you to a nice seafood place. I'm sure they'll have something you can manage to like."
Now, for me, this was red flag number 1. Why ask and then dismiss the response? Why say that my opinion doesn't matter? However, I come from a very narcissistic home, so I thought that maybe I was just reading too much into it. He then started asking me questions about my major, my friends, my hobbies, all the normal stuff. Once we got to the restaurant and began to sit down, he gave me the weirdest look and started asking if anything that I said was true. What?
"Are these people you're talking about real? Do they actually exist?"
Yeah, they're real people in my class."
"I don't believe you. These people don't sound real."
I'm a little taken aback by this. I don't know what's not to believe. They were very normal people. It really weirded me out to be outright accused of making up my friends like that. He went on to accuse me of lying about every little detail about my life. Still, little old southern polite me kept a straight face and got through lunch. It was just really bizarre. We went to the movie and he kept trying to touch me the entire time. I was already so put off from the earlier things that I didn't reciprocate. He got really agitated by this and brought it up once we were out in the car, about how he expected me to be more friendly. Yeah, no, I'm not that kind of girl. He takes me home, and I was glad to finally have that date behind me now. I thought it was over. I refused to return his calls and I began avoiding him at school. Everything is done, right? No, of course not. He started showing up to my apartment daily at 8:30 on the dot to bang on my front door for literally 30 minutes straight. I mean, he wouldn't even take a single minute break. If I answered, he would ask if I wanted to go to lunch later in the day with him. I always told him I was busy, but if I didn't answer, he would just keep knocking. At the time, I didn't have a car, and I literally walked everywhere that I went. I started noticing him driving past me several times when I'd walk to places. He kept offering me rides, to which I'd always say no thank you. He also kept calling me every day. This went on for about 2 months. All in all, I'd say I'm pretty lucky that it never really escalated anything beyond this, and that it finally stopped after the 2 months. However, it was really creepy at the time.
In the fall of 2010, I decided to go back to college. I was a single mom of 3 boys, but they were all in school now, and me going back was finally possible. The school I went to is a regional campus to a very large university, and located in a neighborhood that is known for crime, meth, heroin, prostitution, etc. But it was only a 20-minute drive from my home, and I didn't feel unsafe about going there. The first day and first class were intimidating. I didn't know anyone and was a lot older than most students. I was 28 at the time. I sat down in the back of a room at a table, and a few minutes later, a lady who was around my age sat down next to me. She was very skinny, smelled like cigarettes, greasy hair, sunken eyes, but she started to talk to me and seemed normal enough. She started off the conversation telling me that she chose to sit next to me because I was wearing the prettiest blouse in the room. Strange, but as an awkward person, I leave a lot of leeway for people to say or do awkward things before I think too deep into things. She didn't have a backpack, any books, a pen, notebook, nothing. She said her financial aid hadn't come through yet, but she didn't want to fall behind on classes and asked if she could share my book. I agreed and gave her a pen and paper also. After the first class, she asked if I would mind going to the library with her so she can scan some of the pages to take home. I agreed, and we started to head to the library. She stops and looks at her phone and says her son just texted and needs her to come home to do something. She asks if I'll come with her. I tell her I have another class shortly and can't go with her. I ask if she still wants to go to the library first. She says no, that she has to get to her son, but really can't go alone. I kept telling her I cannot go with her, and she starts crying. At this point, we were in a common area outside, and the parking lot was to one side and the library the other. I tell her I need to go to the library, and she's welcome to come, talk, whatever she needs, but I have to go. I didn't like being outside, away from people with this woman anymore, and was trying to get back to a busier area. She gets really upset, starts screaming, basically says "fuck you" to me. She may have actually said "fuck you." I can't remember how the interaction went exactly because I was frozen in confusion by how quickly she transitioned from friendly, then to crying and scared, into now screaming in my face a slew of hateful, angry things. I turn around to start walking to the library and called my friend so that I would have someone aware if this lady tried anything more than just screaming. I get to the library vestibule and watch her through the glass doors. She is standing at the parking lot, then a car pulls up with a man in it and is obviously upset with the woman. They're arguing, but I can't hear them from inside the vestibule. Eventually, she gets in the car and leaves with him. The next day, I was dreading class because I didn't know what this woman's attitude would be that day. But she wasn't there the next day. In the end, she never came back to class. I didn't know her name or at the time how to look at a class roster, but looking back, I'm fairly certain she was not enrolled at the school at all and for whatever reason was trying to get me to leave with her. I wish I knew her intentions, but at the same time, am glad I never had to find out.